An unhappy boss. Well, that's putting it politely. Usually we call our bosses a lot worse than that. A grumpy boss, bleep, 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 can't believe that my boss is a terrible tyrant, blah, blah, blah. You know what, we all have to deal with this problem at various times in our career. You think you're great, but your boss is a real piece of work and their mood just envelopes you and enshrouds yours and you sort of walk away grumpy at the end of the day. So what do you do about it? There's two big things I want you guys to remember, okay? Here they are. Number one is a phrase called creative indifference. Creative indifference. That means being creatively indifferent to your boss at all. Who cares who your boss is? Your boss could change 10 times before the end of the year. You know, if you're in the companies that I've been in, like sometimes that happens. And then you're like, oh no, do I have to develop all new relationships? No, you don't, because you got creative indifference. Creative indifference means that you look at your work with your head down rather than your head up. You look at your work, you look at your role, you look at your desk, you understand what your goals are. If you don't, you need to articulate those. You understand what your objectives are to achieving those goals. Again, that might be worth talking about if you don't have those. And then you put your head down and you do it. You think of your work as your work. You think of your job as your job. You think of your boss as this other person who exists, but who doesn't really affect me that much. You're like, oh, Neil, like that's really easy for you to say. You're like an independent author and blah, blah, blah. You know what? I got a lot of bosses now. I got publishers, I got speaking agents. I got a lot of people that are still the boss of me. And for 10 years I worked at Walmart and I had bosses, including 2 different CEOs there. So I can tell you that this creative and different concept is really important. Otherwise, your mood will oscillate with the mood of your boss. Your stress will oscillate with the stress of your boss. And you know what your boss needs when they're stressed? They don't need a stressed person. They need a calm and relaxed person. They need somebody who's chill, who's working on their work and creatively indifferent to whatever they're doing. Creative indifference. That's the number one thing. Number 2 is social signals. You know how people change? They don't change because you tell them to change. They don't change because you say, hey boss, want to go meditate with me at lunch? That ain't happening. You're probably laughing right now because you can't picture doing that. No one can. How do your boss's behaviors actually get changed? Through social signals. Let's just say you work on a team and your team has 5 people on it. Your boss is the grumpy person we're talking about. And you want to start a little health and fitness activity. You know it's good for your mood to get outside a little bit at lunch. You know it's helpful to go on a 20-minute nature walks. We can talk about the research on that stuff all day. What do? You don't ask your boss, do you? What you do is you go to the 5 people's offices that you work with and you look for the person that has dusty running shoes in the corner of their office. That's the person you ask. That's the lowest hanging fruit. That's the person who's the most likely to go with you. And once you get 2, it's a lot easier to get a 3rd because now other people are jealous. They're like, they went off for lunch without me. I had to sit and do work at my desk. Soon you have a packet of 3, then you have a packet of 4, and then you are influencing your boss through social signals. The boss looks up from his desk and guess what? His whole team's off for a walk at lunch. Pretty soon, he's gonna get involved. Nobody wants to be a self-designated loser, not joining any party, and that's how you change behavior meaningfully, influencing people through social signals. Remember, it's your job. You're in charge of it. You do it. You need to be creatively indifferent to your boss's mood and behavior. And number 2, if you really want to influence them, it's all about social signals. People don't react to stuff that they're told to do. They react when they see everybody else doing it. Did that work for you? Do you have other suggestions? I would love to hear them. This is an incredible community we have on the Neil Pasricha YouTube channel. Just enter a comment below, subscribe, I will be reading these things. I will be responding to these things. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for listening to my take on how to deal with a grumpy, pissed off, no good, angry boss.